welcome to the Boopcast episode 37. We are your hosts, SheNoob and...
Cory.
And your window capture's frozen, and that's great. Let me fix
Oh,
that
no.
real quick. No!
I look so dumb.
Oh my god.
No, please.
Why is it frozen? Hang on, guys. Let me just... Hey, there we go. I fixed it. Alright. Okay, there we go. It's just because the window was minimized, that's all. I flexed it. Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. So off week this week, no Ruby episode, but we did want to still do a Boopcast this week to go back in time a little bit and discuss something that we missed last volume, which was the finale of Volume 5, Chapter 14.
I totally forgot we hadn't done one.
So did I, because, the reason we didn't do one was because it was the same weekend as RTX Sydney, so I went to Sydney for that. And then when I came back, I got a new job, and I was working 5 days a week for a while there, so it just kind of got away from us, and it just never ended up happening. So we went, well, there's a break week, we may as well take the opportunity to go back and revisit Chapter 14. Little tricky considering everything we know now, but...
I know,
we'll do our
there are
best
things
to...
that I'm like, ooh, I want to talk about this and this and this. So I forgot to ask you, are we going to, discuss at all?
No. We're going to discuss, relevance to the things that we know now. There's no way we're going to be able to not do that. So, my Discord is terribly distracting right now. I'm just going to get...
I know, I'm literally putting myself on Do Not Disturb because I keep hearing the drink sounds.
Oh, well, I just have every server I'm in muted, so... I'm just gonna be like, I'm streaming the Boopcast now, bye. Chapter 14 of Volume 5. Another reason I feel like we didn't really get around to it is because I think we were both kind of disappointed with this finale. Well, not kind of. We were disappointed with this finale.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody was, though. It was kind of naff.
Yeah.
And just not what anyone was expecting, and just a strange way to close out the volume, considering the quality of the chapter before it as well. So,
especially considering it was a 4-part finale, and for the finale of the finale, it was
crap. Really, it was not good. There were elements to it that were good, but at the same time, once it ended, I was like, that's it. And I think a lot of people had the same reaction. We were like, okay, that's how they're choosing to end the volume. Alright then. Because it was a good volume. It was, it had a lot of high moments. It did have a couple really bad lows, but, And then Chapter 13, which immediately preceded the finale, which was so good. And then the finale came along, and everyone was expecting a lot more out of it, I think. And it just didn't live up to expectations. So we're going to talk about that today. We both literally just rewatched the chapter because neither of us had time to do that until now. So,
and we rewatched our reactions. That's a very hard sentence to say.
Rewatched our reactions.
We rewatched our reactions.
We rewatched our reactions because it's like an easy way for us to get back into the mindset that we had when we watched it for the first time and remember what our initial thoughts were. Because it's been a while. It's been a good year almost. So
almost, yeah. Because this was the end. This is the beginning of February. Wasn't it literally February 2nd?
Weekend. No. When did the final chapter come out? Because we were supposed to do the Boopcast the first weekend of February, but it was RTX weekend, so it must have been the end of January.
It must have been January 29th or something then.
It was the end of Jan. It was a good almost year ago.
11 months.
11 months. Well, I mean, it's almost January, so... But end of January is when it came out. So, no rewind and no Kruby to discuss. So...
I mean, there probably was a Kruby to watch,
probably was, but we didn't go back and
we
watch
didn't.
It.
And there was probably a rewind to watch, but we didn't watch it either.
No.
Although we didn't really discuss rewind at all during Volume 5, because...
No. I think
neither of us watched it.
Like the first couple of chapters. Bugger off, Smash. Get out of here. Hi. The first couple of chapters we did, and then after that I was just too frustrated with them, so I stopped watching it. That hasn't really gone away, but with Ellie on the team now, it's more bearable to watch.
Yeah. I love Ellie.
I love Ellie. She's so good. But yeah. So chapter 14. It starts off where it picks up where the previous chapter left off, basically. And like Blake's having her little confrontation with Adam, and the White Fang are getting surrounded by the new White Fang, and I still have the same thoughts that I had initially, which was, why the fuck did Adam bring so few White Fang with him? There's like half a dozen of them. Like, really?
Yeah.
You're gonna attack a school with half a dozen men. Use brain.
Because it's not like they had like limited in how many people they could put on the screen, because like they have 3 White Fang members in a shot, and then like 20 other characters. Like it wasn't technical limitations that stopped them. It was Adam, and I mean I could see the like perspective of, you know, like they are, you know, trying to keep things under the radar, but like for the plan being that after everything went on at the school, the White Fang would basically take over the city. Like, I'm like, oh great, so you're gonna do that with 7 whole people.
No, it's so dumb.
Like,
it's so dumb. It's like, I still think it's dumb. I'm like, what? Why? Well, why? I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if it was like an oversight, or like if it was a writing problem, or like I just don't, or if they thought that that's how the scene should actually go. Because I'm like, was Adam seriously thinking that he should only bring half a dozen people with him? Like, is he that overconfident and stupid? The answer is probably yes, but at the same time, I feel like it could very well have been like they wrote it like that without thinking about it, really. And I also feel like chapter 14 was incredibly rushed. So yeah. And I mean,
haven't they also since admitted that like they
rushed,
were really rushed for the last 4 episodes of the volume?
But I mean, he had those White Fang with him over the course of like chapters 10 to 14. So like that's not really an excuse. Like, oh, we were rushed, so we didn't write in more White Fang. No, bitch, you just didn't think about it. But or Adam didn't think about it. Yeah, it's just, I feel like it's a lot of the reason they have decided this volume to drop off the 14th chapter, because they know that that's how it went last volume, that they churned out a mediocre finale because they were so rushed to get it done. And I do commend them for making that choice and being like, we would rather drop off a chapter and have the entire volume be of a higher quality, or the remainder of the volume at least be of a higher quality, than churn out another volume 5 chapter 14. And I'm like, yes, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Because
I'm trying to think like would volume 5 have been better if it just ended at chapter 13? But the thing is, no, it wouldn't.
It would have been better if they had like consolidated chapters 10 to 14 into chapters 10 to 13, definitely. But
it was 11. Because you always forget chapter 10 was the Belladonna house.
11. I keep saying 10. I don't know. Yeah, chapter 11 to 14. If they had consolidated that into
3 episodes,
3 chapters instead of 4. I don't know why they decided to do it the way that they did. They dragged it out too much, and of course it fell apart at the end because they dragged it out so much.
Well, I mean, it was all because like they needed the cliffhanger of chapter 11, and then they kind of needed to still drag that cliffhanger out a little bit with chapter 12. And then chapter 13 was where all the awesome stuff happened. And then chapter 14 was just kind of there.
It was just kind of there. And that's the thing. Like, Ruby has always done this sort of thing where, like, the second to last chapter is the last big event of the volume, and then the final chapter's cleanup. I think they got the inspiration for that from Game of Thrones. because that's what Game of Thrones does. But
Mm-hmm.
It's not... The thing is about Game of Thrones is that you have this big, massive event, and you need the last episode of the season to, like, be like, okay, well, everybody I like just died. Let me recover from that for a second. But with RWBY, it's like, oh, big event, and then the chapter after is like, everybody's just standing there talking, and nothing of consequence is happening whatsoever. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, Hi, Lathan, welcome to the stream. Yeah, so just, really naff finale.
Yeah, but like when I think back to my expectations of this episode, I was fine with it being a wrap up episode. Like I was fine with them, like just kind of setting the groundworks. But what I wanted was like, I don't know, like the reunion in this episode felt so forced and rushed.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like some of the things we've seen in Volume 6 that like fill the gap are things I wanted in Chapter 14.
Yeah.
Like I wanted them to like go back to the house and sit down and like properly talk and like stuff like that. Like I didn't like that it ended immediately post battle. Like I wanted the next day.
Yeah.
Because it would have felt better.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Volume 3's finale and Volume 4's finale, like they both kind of had their big battle, and then they cut you forward a little bit to deal with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was what I wished.
Hi Ben, welcome to the stream. Yeah, and I feel like that's some of the reason they did include that early in Volume 6 is because that was what the fans wanted to see. Like, we needed the fallout and the cleanup from Haven. And also because story-wise, it's something that they wanted to include. And the way that they did it in Volume 6, Chapter 1 was just so well done. Clearly they've learned a lot from Volumes 4 and 5. Especially Volume 5, because the reception of Volume 5 was so mixed. I do think it is a really solid volume. But I'm biased now because Volume 6 has been so amazing that I'm like, every other volume before this is trash. But it's halfway through. So, but yeah, I'm gonna jinx this. Like, the rest of Volume 6 is gonna be terrible now or something. But I honestly couldn't see it happening. But, like the fact that they've now dropped off the 14th chapter, I have even more faith in the remainder of the volume to be incredible, because they're seeing that they don't have time for everything that they want to do. So they're going, we're not going to do everything we want to do. We're going to leave some of it for Volume 7, and we're going to consolidate into less chapters because it's going to produce a better quality volume. And I love that they've done that and they've made that decision. Even like made it halfway through the volume. Like, the volume is airing, and now they're deciding, okay, we can't make this work. We have to shift it around. Lathan, we are not talking about Detroit Become Human. This is a RWBY podcast. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for the host.
Hi, Larissa.
Yeah, so...
Your phone is buzzing like crazy, by the way.
Is it? Oh, it's a scam caller. Sorry, I couldn't hear it. Don't mind my phone. I'll just put it over here so you guys can't hear that. My apologies. Yeah, so... Like, when I started watching this episode just now, I was immediately, like, recognizing that the shots were lingering for way too long. Like, some of the animation looks really awkward, and that shot in particular of, like, Ilya tackling that White Fang guy, and then she turns around and the bunny's like, thank you. And she has a really long, lingering nod at her. I'm like, this is cringe-worthy. Like, after Volume 6, I'm like, this cinematography is terrible. This does not...
It's like... that shot was just like, okay, we get it. It's a female talking to Ilya. I know, love interest. Like,
oh my god.
We get it.
Yeah. And And, like, as soon as, like, Adam comes on screen, my immediate reaction is just like, shut up, Adam. Stop talking. Nobody cares. Go back to your hole. Like, literally, you failed epically, bro. Just get out of here. This entire conversation between Adam and Blake and Sun makes me cringe. Because it is written badly. And, like, none of what they're saying has any place in this conversation. And it's like, I'm like, they're talking way too much. Like, this is supposed to be a finale. There really should be more action happening in this action scene. There's no action going on. They're just standing there chatting to one another. And I'm like, can you just do something? It's so annoying to watch. It's frustrating. And, like,
because, like, I get that what they wanted to do in the scene was, like, they wanted to, like, really have Blake kind of demean Adam and show that, like, you know, she's moved past him and all this other stuff. But, like, why couldn't she have done that without, like, in a fight, kind of? Like,
or
we saw how much
10 less lines. That would be great.
Yeah.
No worries, Lisa.
Because I don't know, like, they could have, like, I mean, just the way that, like, when she says things, then they show Adam, like, visibly going, like, "Urgh," kind of. It's like, that would have been more impactful if, like, that had been, like, they clashed blades, and then, like, you know, her saying that had made him make a, you know, a stupid attack that allowed her the upper hand in the fight and stuff like that. So, like...
And the thing is that the whole volume, they've been building up this massive confrontation between Blake and Adam, and then this was it. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we got invested over the course of the entire volume in Blake and Adam are gonna have a confrontation at the end, and then it was naff, and he runs away. And I'm like, really? Guys, come on. The gunchucks making a reappearance was good here, but the shot was kind of weird. Where, like, the angle of it, and, like, the fact that it held on Sun while he's just spinning the gunchucks at nothing. Like, it was just a bit weird. And
well, it's like, you get the impression he's supposed to be, like, firing at Adam, but thing is, like, Adam isn't in the shot until it's 2/3 over.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, he's just standing there spinning his gunchucks, and you're like, okay, well, cool, but I feel like this is just an excuse to show gunchucks and nothing else. But, yeah, the whole conversation between them when, like... And every line is just weird. And, like, I was watching it just now, I'm going, these lines are just bizarre. Like, what they're saying is so odd. And, especially when Sun jumps in. And, Adam's like... Oh, tell me, does Blake make all of her classmates fight for her? And Sun's like, it's a volunteer gig. And then he's like, they're just talking. And I'm like, what? Somebody fight somebody.
And, like, he even goes from, like, out of a defensive stand into a cool guy stand. Like, it's a volunteer gig. And it's like, Adam could literally just go right now, and you'd be, you know.
And this is the thing, Adam is such a formidable foe, and we've seen what he's, like, we've scratched the surface of what he's capable of. But here, he devolves into a sniveling, like, broody, tantrum-throwing teenager. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
You could literally destroy them with a flick of your wrist. Why don't
it is kind of like, because they built up all season that, like, they need an army to stop Adam and all this stuff. And they finally get the army, and they don't even need it. Like,
no, they really don't at all.
Like,
they, like, consigned all of these people, and there's, like, half a dozen White Fang there and Adam. And it's like,
Yeah. It's literally like, we've seen Blake and Sun take on this many White Fang before. Granted, it was Rum and Torchwick and not Adam, and Adam would be way more dangerous, but still, like, they could have taken on all the people there. Add Ilya into the mix like they did, and yeah, you're peachy.
You're fine, yeah. I feel like Adam, though, if you outnumber him enough, it would start to overwhelm his serious OP-ness.
Yeah, well, I feel like that was part of the reason, though, because it's the whole cornered bull thing that they were clearly going for here.
Be unnecessary.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they didn't know what they were walking into. They didn't know how many White Fang would be attacking Haven, and after the fall of Beacon, probably better to be safe than sorry. But,
Yeah.
like, yeah, just this whole
But here's the thing.
scene.
They had that whole army, and then they also got Mistral's police force there.
I know!
Like,
and
it's
they
like,
didn't do anything!
exactly. It's literally like, could they have not just, like, sent Ilya ahead and been like, hey, just call the police? Like,
yeah, exactly.
we have the information, like, especially because, like, they got this information, and then it took them, like they had the information start of the volume. And how long did it take them to put together the army and get there and stuff? Like they could have easily, like, they could have easily, like, just sent somebody ahead in that time to be like, get the police involved, something's going down. Like, and, like, granted, though, they did touch on that in that, Yuma? Was that the name of the...
Yeah,
no.
Yuma.
Oh, yeah, it was Yuma. He dealt with the messenger that they'd sent, but, like, could they have not found other ways to, like, you know? I get communication is down, but that felt like one of the things that was, like, why did they need to wait until they had the whole army assembled to then, like... help Mistral.
Because the writing in Volume 5 is flawed. That's why.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just this whole scene, I was like, why? Why is anything that's being said? Why is nothing happening? And then Adam just fucking runs away, and that's it. And, like, it was really... It was a letdown. After they built all of this up, and then it just kind of doesn't happen. It doesn't even almost happen, it just doesn't happen. And then, like, Blake's like, oh, he wants us to follow him so he can pick us off, so let's not do that, and let's go focus on this instead. And I'm like, that makes sense, but at the same time, rude.
Yeah.
I did like in the shot when she's talking to Sun that you can see a lot of background fighting in the actual academy. That was, like, the background action got a lot better in Volume 5, and it's got even better in Volume 6. But it's nice to see the background action going on. But the biggest problem I have with, like, the last few chapters of Volume 5 is that Emerald and Mercury and Hazel and Ruby, Weiss and Yang and Nora, Ren, John, Oscar, and Crow. Is that everybody?
Yes. Oh, forgot Lionheart.
Leo. Well, fuck him. He's not even, like, he's not
exactly.
But they're all, like, fighting inside of Haven Academy, but, like, every time we get close-up shots of them, they stop fighting to, like, look at something. And I'm like... No, bitch, no one would do this. Like, this doesn't happen. This is not how fights work. And, like,
exactly. Everybody turns to look at Blake walk in, and so, like, you know, you don't think Emerald would be like, stab!
Exactly. And, like, especially when Blake busts in here. They're just, like, Ruby and Weiss are just standing there, staring at Hazel and the others, and, like, well, Weiss is using her Lancer, so she's doing something at least. But they're just standing there.
Well, no, at that point, when Blake gets there, the Lancer had just been destroyed.
It had just been destroyed.
So she literally was doing nothing. She was just standing there, like...
They just stand there so much during this entire confrontation, and it drives me up the wall. Because I'm like, if you literally just stood there, if this was real life, you would all be dead. All of you. It's so annoying.
Yeah. The only shot that makes sense for me is the final battle shot in this episode, where, like, everybody's exhausted and they're, like, you know, the heroes are, like, being like, stop this fight, you lost. Like, that's the only time that it makes sense to me that they're just standing around.
I hate that shot. I really hate it, because they're suddenly, like, standing in lines facing one another. And I'm like, when did this happen? How did we get from where we were the last time we saw these people to here? Why are we suddenly doing a face-off? Like, what's going on here? Like, I don't understand. And the mise-en-scène in this entire Haven Academy thing was a mess. Like, when I rewatch all of these last few chapters, I can see that they are not keeping track of where everybody is in the scene because everyone is teleporting and moving around all over the place. And, like, I get that they're moving them around so that, like, they can have the camera in the place that they want it. But
just to give the illusion that the big battle has been happening here and everyone's moving around, but
even little things, like, after Jean, like, chips Cinder's mask and he, like, falls behind her, in the next shot, they're completely in the opposite places. And it's so obvious. And then at the end of this chapter, after the Salem illusion, Team Ruby are standing in a line and Ozpin speaks, but he's on the opposite side of the room to where he was just moments ago. And they turn the other way, and I'm like, that is so obvious. Why did they move this shot around completely the wrong way? And it's like, it happened a lot during the course of this entire, like, Haven Academy attack, where I'm like, okay, they just teleported. They weren't there before. They're over here now. Like, and the mise-en-scene's a mess. And, like, you've really got to keep track of where people are, because if you teleport them, it's super noticeable. And I have noticed a big improvement in it in Volume 6, especially in scenes like when they were sitting in the Cotter Arc household. I was keeping very close track of where everybody was in that scene, and they more or less stayed in their place. So, but when they don't, super obvious, and it bugs the crap out of me.
Well, it is something that Ruby's always had an issue with. Like, even they had to add something into Chapter 10 of Volume 5 where, you know, Blake just suddenly teleported out of the room. And so they had to, like, add in a scene of, like, Blake running off. Which honestly didn't... I almost found it more cringy after they made that change. It did not make it
better, it made it worse. I know what you're talking about.
Because it was like, why would she run off?
Yeah. It's the shot where, like, Sun is about to do his gunchuck thing, and he looks over and Blake's, like, on the floor, which is how it was originally. But then they changed it to where she gets up and runs out of frame. And I'm like, that's worse. I don't know why you made that change. Like, I get that it was bad before, but you literally just made it so much worse. Like, now it makes no sense.
Yeah, and it makes even less sense because then, like, 4 seconds later, she's like, stop.
She's back on the ground again.
And she's back where she was.
Oh my god, it's so bad. I'm like, why did you make this change? It doesn't make any sense. And then there was another change they made in this chapter where originally when Ruby shoots Leo, his aura doesn't go down, and then they changed it so that it does. And that's
just looks like Leo just runs off, and then it was like, "Okay, bye, bitch." And then they're like, "Oh no, he ran off because his aura went down." And it's like,
was downing his aura the solution to that terrible direction? I don't think so. I think it's terrible direction no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I almost prefer it without his aura going down because, like, he's just the Cowardly Lion, and like, also he was completely separated from every other aspect of the fight. Like, even the Ruby girls have their backs to him for ages. And he's just standing on the balcony like, what's going on down there?
I know, he literally does nothing the entire fight. He gets thrown down the stairs by Oscar and then does nothing. And it's like, wow. But I feel like there were just so many people in the scene that they just, on so many occasions, just forgot about people. And, like, forgot where everyone was, and I feel like there are so many animators working on these chapters as well, is why the continuity is so broken, because they clearly haven't, like, communicated between one shot to another that, where people are standing and where they're positioned, and it's just a mess. It's just all a mess. But, yeah, Blake making an entrance here, her entrance was odd. I'm like, I forever will not understand the way gravity works in Remnant, because these people seem to be able to jump and defy gravity like you wouldn't believe. And, yeah, it just, her entrance was a little weird. And the fact that she turns to Weiss and she's like, are you okay? No, are you hurt? She says, and Weiss is like, no, like being like, no, I'm fine. And it's like, bitch,
you were stabbed.
Have you seen your dress? And I remember saying this, when the volume ended last volume, being like, if Weiss has the same goddamn dress on next volume, and it's like suddenly magically mended and not bloody anymore, I'm gonna be pissed off. I'm pissed off, okay? It doesn't make any sense. She hasn't changed her dress. It's the same dress, and somehow she got dried blood out of a fucking so blue it's almost white dress.
Mm-hmm.
What? It bothers the fuck out of me. Shit like that bothers me so much. I hate it. But yeah, anyway, she needs to invest in body armor. They all do. But
yeah.
The one thing that was nice about this little sort of short reunion that we got was Ruby yelling checkmate and like Bryce and Blake jumping out and then being like, let's go kick some butt. I don't know why you weren't kicking butt already, but whatever.
Well, one thing I remember you also complaining about at the time was was Weiss's line about like, I just remembered you were the quiet one, and it's like, what does that have to do with the situation?
This entire chapter is like, most of the lines I'm like, why are you saying that right now? I feel like, can you talk about this later?
Yeah,
and,
the only
just
part of the episode that I think was like truly well written was the vault, and even that had some kind of weirdness to it.
It did, yeah. I think a lot of the writing of Volume 5 had a lot of weirdness to it. I feel like the writing suffered because the visuals were so good in Volume 5. I feel like in Volume 4 was written very well, but the visuals weren't that great. Volume 5 was written kind of poorly, but the visuals definitely improved. Volume 6, I feel like they finally have found their balance between, okay, we've used Maya for a couple of years, we know what we're doing now. And also we've been listening to all of this feedback we got from volumes 4 and 5. Let's not do that again. And they've finally gone, okay, visuals, writing, boom, put them together. And now it's finally starting to work after a couple of years of awkward volumes. So, again, I could be jinxing it, and the rest of Volume 6 could suck. We'll just have to wait and see. Chapter 9's coming out tomorrow, and I'm a little nervous, because I don't know where that's going to take the story from here. And B, I'm like, we're past the halfway point, and we really haven't had a bad chapter. Chapter 8 was good, but obviously it wasn't to the standard of the rest of the volume. But again, I can kind of forgive them, because in story-wise, they did hit a brick wall. And it's like, what else can you do with a chapter that's literally about, like, okay, this didn't work, now we have to figure out what to do next. So I'm hoping they're going to keep the same pace that they've had going, because it's the only way that the rest of the volume isn't going to, like, drag, is if they keep the pace consistent and keep things moving along. But,
yeah. Well, I don't know, because I'm a little bit worried about it as well, just because I saw people complaining about the Ruby Rewind
preview
clip. Yeah, preview clip.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either. But I saw people, like, complaining about the animation in it. But I'm like, well, they had 2 weeks to fix it. So, almost 2 weeks to fix it. So...
And the thing is, we don't know... With the preview clips, we don't know what level of complete they are, because we don't know if this is a clip that they like finished a couple weeks before it actually went on the rewind, or if like minutes before they actually went, here you go, here's the clip for this week.
Yeah,
and
I feel like they'd have to get it ready like at least a day in advance.
I feel like they would, but like knowing Rooster Teeth or any production company for that matter, they work on things right up until they literally can't work on them anymore to perfect them. So, but Rooster Teeth also had a lot of issues with renders of things. So I feel like they would be like, okay, we're gonna render it like the night before, and then if the render fails, they have like the morning until it happens to get that render done. Yeah.
So that's why I feel like that's probably how they do it. And that, you know, if they're working on it up until the end, it's because of the render and not because of, you know, like they're working on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what, like, level of this is finished they are when they actually go on the rewind. I know that in previous rewinds we have seen a preview of the upcoming episode, and then when the episode comes, they've actually changed something in what they show.
Oh, and it looks totally different, yeah.
Completely different. So, but again, I don't know if it's a thing where, like, the clip is slightly old, or they have literally, in that time, fixed that thing. And, like, they always intended to do it, they just didn't get around to it up until, like, oh shit, we need a clip for the rewind this week. But, yeah, I mean, we don't watch those clips, obviously, because we both react to the show, so we haven't seen it. But, I mean, people complained about Chapter 8. Like, I saw a lot of complaints about Chapter 8 before I watched it, and I thought it was fine. And, like, the only reservations I had about it was when I watched it the first time, I was like, I hope it's not boring the second time. But it wasn't. And it wasn't boring the third time either. So I was like, okay, this is fine. This isn't a Volume 5, Chapter 9, or a Volume 4, Chapter 8. It's fine. I feel like around that chapter number, though, is when they do their, let's sit down and talk about this thing that we learned in the first half of the volume. And, and it hasn't gone so well in the past, but this one
9's a
fine.
notorious number.
The only problem I had with Chapter 8, really, was the beginning scene, in that it was really bizarre and went on way too long. But it still wasn't the level of horrendous that Volume 5, Chapter 9 was, so I'm fine about it. And we got some Silver Eyes chat, which was nice. And the scene with Team Junior and Oscar and everyone was a really good and really well written, so it had a lot of redeeming qualities to it, whereas Volume 5, Chapter 9 does not. It's another can of fish altogether. Speaking of Volume 5, Chapter 9, Raven's in this chapter. Totally didn't forget about her. She has been absent since this chapter, which I am not complaining about at all, because I feel like I was oversaturated with Raven last volume, and I just don't like her. And this entire scene solidified to me at the time, because I was so on the fence about her character. I was like, I don't like you, I think you're a selfish piece of shit. But I wonder if there isn't possible redemption for you here. But then she didn't redeem herself. She went the opposite way with it. So I was like,
yeah.
No, I hate you.
It was another one of those things where, like, these characters had, like, even Hazel was an example of last volume, where, like, they had this illusion of, like, deeper, complex meanings behind things. And then they give you the explanation and you're just like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
I want a new one.
Exactly. Can I have my own headcanon back, please? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Before we learn people's motives, we have our own headcanon about, like, we put, the pieces of evidence and the information that we have together, and we go, okay, well, this could be a reason why they're doing this. But with Raven, when we found out the reason why, we were like, but you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You're stupid. You're not thinking this through. And it's really obvious in this entire scene that she has not thought any of this through. Like, she was, like, just even gonna waltz
her
into
first
the vault.
line.
Yeah, her first line, exactly. And, like,
yeah, like, her first line in this part was like, I knew that you could, like, I knew you guys could take care of yourselves up there. That's why I agreed to this plan. So you guys would deal with all of them while I dealt with the vault and ran off with the relic and all this stuff. And it's like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't.
No, and, like, she's just gonna waltz into the vault and take the relic, and then what? Like, and, like, Yang questions her, and she's like, if you thought having maiden powers put a target on your back, if you take this relic, Salem's gonna hunt you to the ends of the earth. Like, you have not thought this through. And Raven doesn't realize until Yang tells her that she has not thought it through. At all. Yeah. Like, Ruby is a, American anime-esque 3D animated show that, we both watch and we talk about every week. So, if you want to check it out, you can go to roosterteeth.com. That is where the show is posted every week. Chapter 9 is coming out tomorrow of Volume 6. So, anywho, you're welcome. Yeah, she's just not thought any of this through. And it's very obvious. And, like, throughout the entire volume, she was constantly crapping on about how, like, I'm not getting involved in this. Like, Ozpin can't win this war. Ozpin's stupid. Ozpin's this. Ozpin's that. Crow's an idiot. Tai is too. And it's like, you're the biggest idiot out of anybody here because you don't know what you want. You don't know what your involvement is in this whole thing. And you claim you don't want to be involved, but A, you're the Spring Maiden, and B, you literally, like, stuck your hand up to join forces with Cinder, who is working for Salem, to stab your brother in the back and take the relic for yourself because you don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, Raven! It doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and she has not thought it through.
Yeah. It's just... it's stupid because, like, she wants you to believe that the reason she did this all is because she was gonna, you know, double-cross, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, really, what she should have done is she should have just gotten out of there.
Yeah.
Or even, like, a different explanation should have been, is she should have, like, and this is maybe a bit too dark, but, like, she should have, like, publicly executed Vernal to, like, give the illusion that, or like, act like she had a plan with Vernal to be like, Vernal, you remember who you're supposed to think of, right? And Vernal's like, yes, I remember. And then, you know, and then she kills her and gives the illusion that the Spring Maiden powers were passed on to somebody else. And it, like, completely throws Salem's plan out of works and stuff. Or she should have just taken Vernal and ran to keep up the illusion that you know, the Spring Maiden is elsewhere.
Yeah.
But instead of, like, preventing them from even getting anywhere near the relic, she's like, I'm just going to take the relic away. Right. It's like, no, take the Spring Maiden away. That's the solution. Not taking the relic away, you take the Spring Maiden away.
Raven's entire plan makes no sense. And it has so many holes, it may as well be Swiss cheese. And it's like, she is such a confusing character to me because she says one thing and does another, and it's very clear to me that she has no idea what she's doing or what she wants or whether she's actually involved or not. She claims that she doesn't want to get involved. It's not my fight. It's not my problem. Blah, 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 blah. Bitch, you're involved. Let me tell you. You were involved the second you inherited those powers by killing the Spring Maiden. You got involved. And you're involved whether you like it or not.
And that's the other thing that we learn in this episode is that she killed the previous Spring Maiden.
Exactly! Like, what did she think was gonna happen?
Yeah, exactly. And she was like, that girl didn't stand a chance, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was mercy what I did.
It was mercy. Bitch, no. It was greed and selfishness. Like, you wanted the powers for yourself or whatever. Because I don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Bye, Felicia.
It was like, okay, it was mercy for you to kill her. But, like, your whole thing is you wanted to be out of this war. Like, you can't have both. Like, by giving that Spring Maiden the mercy, you are back involved. Yeah. Like, if you truly wanted out, you would have just been like, I'm sorry, I can't protect you, and thrown her off a cliff. Right? Or something. Like,
just, oh my god, but, like, at the same time, like, just throw her on the side of the road and leave her there. Because if you truly don't give a shit and you don't want to get involved, what do you care if Salem finds the Spring Maiden? But clearly she does care, but she just can't admit it to herself, or she doesn't fucking know what she wants! And it's so frustrating. I'm like, Raven, do you see how little sense you make? Like, every single action you do is contradicting everything you say that you want. And it's like, it's plainly obvious. You have no idea what you're doing. And you have no idea if, like, I feel like she feels super duper guilty about turning her back on Ozpin and turning her back on the world, basically. Because she realized that it was a fight that they couldn't win. And so she went, well, what's the point in fighting it? But at the same time, she is still doing things like taking the Spring Maiden powers and intending to take the relic from the vault and intending to run off with it. And it's like, bitch, that's gonna work for about 5 seconds and then you're gonna be dead. And then, like, what's your plan? I don't understand you.
Yeah. And, like, the other thing I don't understand is her plan was, as we can kind of understand, was she was going to take the relic and then she was going to teleport to Ty. And so then she's in Vale now with a relic in a location that Salem already has, like, major control over. Like...
This is what I mean. She hasn't thought any of this shit through. She's just making it up as she goes.
Yeah, and, like, what was her plan? Like, it's just... Was she just planning on, like, you know, going and hiding? And she makes no sense. And like, that's why the whole thing bothers me so much, is because it's like... What was the reason? And like, and then even Yang brings up that, like, okay, if Raven runs off with the relic, if all this other stuff, Salem will come looking for her, and she might come looking for Yang, and Yang will fight Salem. And that, like, really bothered Raven, that, like, oh my god, that Yang would fight Salem? And like, it's like, okay, so you're bothered that Yang might have to, like, fight Salem, or, you know, most likely Salem's forces. But, like, yet she then put Yang in a situation where she would have to fight Salem's forces, so that way she could execute her stupid plan. And, like, and she says, I was confident you could deal with it. And it's like...
Bullshit. Bullshit. You are making this crap up as you go. You don't give a shit who you throw in the line of fire when you do it. And... She just, oh my god, she's like, just the worst.
Like, honestly, I would have been, I would have liked Raven so much more, and I would have found her motivation to make so much more sense if her plan was, I want to kill Cinder.
Exactly.
I'm going to take the Fall Maiden powers from Salem's side, so I'm going to use my Spring Maidenness to kill the Fall Maiden. And, like, if that had been her plan, I would have been like, okay, that makes sense. But, like, the fact that then she was going to run off with the relic, it's just like, why?
And also,
like,
killing Crow went out the window, because you remember that's why she made the deal in the first place with Cinder in Chapter 9. And, like, nothing that happened in Chapter 9 makes any sense by the time you get to Chapter 14. But, like, the whole reason she made the deal was she was like, I want Crow dead. If he finds out I've got the Spring Maiden, he's going to become a problem. And it's like, either she knew going into this that Vernal was not coming out alive, which is entirely possible.
Yeah.
She would have been thinking about the fact that I could get exposed while this is going on. And, like, when she gets there, she fights Crow, but then immediately just, like, abandons that to go take Vernal down to the vault. And it's like, well, bitch, I thought you came here to kill your brother. Like, clearly you don't know what you want or why you're here.
And, I mean, like, granted, I think a lot of the reason she initially took the deal with Cinder is because it was like, either we make a deal with Cinder, or they kill us all. They burn our place to the ground and kill us all, and, you know, all this other stuff. Whereas if I basically, like, force Cinder into a confrontation with more capable people, I stand a better chance of survival.
Yeah. I feel
but once again, that was only, like, maybe a small fraction of her plan. But the part that still annoys me was her plan to run off with the relic. It's like, bitch, especially once she dealt with Cinder, like, she could have easily just, like, gone back upstairs and been like, I am the Spring Maiden, die, and killed killed everyone up there, and been like, okay, great. We're just gonna wait for the vault to close, and then I'm just gonna leave, and you're not gonna know where I'm going, and I'm not gonna tell you where I'm going, and that'll be that, and the relic will be safe in the vault. No.
Well, like, exactly. Why did she even open the vault in the first place? Cinder was dead at that point. Vernal was dead. It's like, nobody was there. She could have just left the vault closed and been done with it, and just noped out of there, because that would have made more sense to her character and, like, to what she says she wants. And, like, she's Miss I don't want to get involved, who is constantly getting herself involved. And, like, actively involving herself. That's the thing. She's not getting involved by consequence. She's actively doing things that are making her involved. And I'm like, what? I don't... Why? What are you doing? You're not thinking about this. And it's like, her idea of not getting involved is killing the Spring Maiden, taking her powers, and then removing the Relic of Knowledge from its vault. That's
and,
getting
like,
involved!
that's the other thing. Is, like, she also kind of implied that, like, she wanted the relics because, like they also like set up Raven as like this other faction of people going after the relics and all this stuff, and like, but like that's how they set it up, but then that's not how they executed it, because like Raven didn't seem to want the Relic of Knowledge to like have access to its knowledge. She just wanted it so Salem wouldn't, or because she thought it'd be safer with her, or whatever.
Dumb idea.
But like, it's like, especially now that we know like the logistics of how the relic works, it's like, bitch wouldn't have known how to use the Relic of Knowledge as is. So
and
like,
this is why Raven definitely didn't use the first question, because like I feel like if she was aware of what the relic was and what it did, she would not have taken it out of the vault in the first place, or not intended to. But unless she wanted something out, the only reason I can think why she would possibly want the relic is just greed and power. And it's like, but at that point, what good would it possibly do her other than to make her a massive target for Salem? And like, this is the opposite of what she claims that she wants. So I'm like, either Raven herself isn't thinking this through, or the writers are not thinking this through. And it could be either way. So like, she just makes no sense to me. She's just so frustrating.
And again, I feel like what they wanted was like, if Raven had run off with the relic and like they suddenly inserted a third faction that was like in the works here, like that could have been an interesting way to go about this, where it's like, okay, it's not just Oz versus Salem anymore, it's Oz, Salem, and Raven. And like it adds in this whole other aspect to the show, but they just kind of abandoned that idea like by episode like 5 or 6. And so it was like, okay.
Sure. But like the reason I don't think it's like the writers haven't thought it through is because Yang calls her out on all of this. Like, I'm glad that Yang does do this, because she's like, bitch, you killed the Spring Maiden, and now you're gonna take the relic, and then what? Like, Salem's gonna hunt you, and that like, why don't you just let us take it? We're the ones who actually want to be hunted. Like, we're the ones who are actually going to go up to Salem and be like, bitch, we got your relic. But, like, and Raven doesn't seem to realize this until Yang, like, calls her out. And she's like, you ain't thinking this through, honey. Like, do you realize what's going to happen? And she's like, oh, shit.
The other thing I don't understand even more than that is, why even touch the relic? Like, why go into the vault? Why touch the relic? Like, we saw this episode, or we saw during, was it episode? When did we see Neo and Cinder last?
Yeah,
7. Yeah, chapter 7. We saw that the vault was like closed and gone. So, like, I mean, granted, that could be, like, an aspect of that, you know, without the relic, like, the relic was sustaining that alternate dimension, and now that the relic isn't there, the dimension's gone. But, like, wouldn't the door have eventually closed again? And if it wouldn't, Oz, build better vaults.
I know, right? Like, why open the vault in the first place, is the big question. Like, why not just leave it there? It would be safer.
Well, that's the biggest question for Raven. Why did she even open the vault? But my biggest question for Yang is then why take the relic? I mean,
at that point, the vault is open. And she doesn't know for sure if it's gonna close again. So I think she just figures I have to take this thing because it's the only way it's gonna be safe. Well, again, Salem knows where the vault is, and she doesn't know who the Spring Maiden is, but like. I get that they're trying to protect the relic by moving it, but I also don't get why they're taking it to Atlas. I guess we'll find out at some point. But it's
probably just the safest way for them to do it.
Yeah.
Even though that seems ridiculous, like, because like, wouldn't it be easier to just charter a boat to Vacuo?
Oh, fuck knows. But clearly, Osmond's got something up his sleeve. There's a reason he wants to take it there. So
yeah.
I don't know if that reason has anything to do with General Ironwood, maybe, but yeah, I guess we'll find out why they're taking it to Atlas.
Yeah. I mean, my guess is that it is the shorter of the two journeys, potentially. Because, like, as we've heard from their plan so far, is their plan is, like, they take a train from Mistral to Argus, they go to Argus, they they convince them that they need to speak to Ironwood, that they're friends with Ironwood, and then they take them to Ironwood. And then Ironwood summons the Winter Maiden.
What? Exactly. Ironwood does what?
And then they open the vault and they chuck it in there with that one. But that's the thing, though, is if they're able to open a vault, throw another relic in there, and then close the vault, why didn't they just leave it in the vault downstairs?
That's the thing, though. Salem knows where all the vaults are. The only one she couldn't find was Beacon, because Oz had the good fucking sense to put it elsewhere. But, like, the schools are hiding the vaults, so she knows where the relics are. That's the problem. So, chucking the Relic of Knowledge in with the Relic of Creation is not the best idea, I don't think. Because it's like, then if she opens that vault, jackpot, 2 relics. Oh, look at that. But, I don't... Yeah, either way, this is not going to go well.
J-Spy, 100%. I mean, he's General Ironwood, and she's Special Operative...
Shorty McRacism.
Carolina Cordovan.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, Ironwood's the General, so, yeah.
Like, he's like, he even talks about how he has 2 seats on the Atlas Council, because he is both a general in the army and the headmaster of Atlas Academy.
Atlas Academy. Bacon. Atlas, yeah. So, Ironwood has a lot of power. J-Spy, that's not how you question. If you want to redeem a question, you use the Streamlabs menu in the bottom right-hand corner of the stream. Ironwood has a lot of power, and he's a dangerous kind of man to have that amount of power. Not just because he's at Legion and the mentality they have is extremely dangerous, but also because he is a man who seems very prone to making bad decisions out of panic. And we've seen him do it before. Like, he's closed the Atlas borders at a time when relations between kingdoms are already so fragile. And he, like, turned his back on Ozpin and wouldn't trust him and wouldn't listen to him. To be fair, the fall of Beacon happened anyway. But, like, Ironwood just is not going the right way about anything because he's scared and he's panicking and he doesn't know what to do. So he's just being like, I'm just going to close Atlas off from the entire world because I want to protect my kingdom and me, and I want to protect the Relic of Creation, probably is what he's thinking about. But, if he's even aware of them. Because Crow was aware of the relics, but he didn't know what they did. So, but again, I don't know how in the know Ironwood is. I doubt he's more in the know than Crow was. I think he's less. So, all of this, like, and when they come over here with hopefully Ozpin back by then, and they blurt all of this shit out to Ironwood, this is the thing. How much are they going to tell him? Because I feel like telling him everything is so dangerous. And he's not going to react well to any of it.
Like, that's why I'm like, they have to learn that there's a way to beat Salem before they meet up with James. Because if they meet up with James, and then they're like, okay, we need you to put this in the vault. Also, Salem can't be beat. He'd be like... Also,
yeah, we're fucked.
Yeah.
He would just... Yeah, no, not good. Anyway, we're getting way off topic here, but... we just want to talk about Volume 6.
I don't know. I could imagine Ironwood knowing just slightly more than Crow, because once again, Crow was just a... Like... I mean, granted, he was basically, like, Ozpin's right-hand man.
He was basically a pawn.
But, like, you know... But James is a headmaster, so, like, I feel like, at the very least, Ozpin would have told James more information related to, like, his specific vault or the Winter Maiden specifically or something there.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, at the same time, I feel like Ozpin probably trusts Crow a lot more than he trusts Ironwood. He's kind of indicated that in the past, that he doesn't really trust Ironwood, and Ironwood is a loose cannon. Like, he's a bit volatile, so, like... I get why he may not have put him as in the know. And, like, Crow also mentions in Volume 3 that Oz made Ironwood a part of their inner circle. So it's like, Crow was a part of the circle before Ironwood was, which is interesting to me. Because maybe Ironwood wasn't brought into all of it until he became the headmaster. Or, like, we don't know the timeline of any of this. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So.
Because, like, the thing is we know that 80 years ago, after the Great War, that Ozpin the King of Vale, put his 3 most trusted lieutenants in charge of the 3 schools.
Right.
And, but those people were not the people who are most likely currently headmasters.
The people that we know as headmasters now are their successors. So.
Yeah. But it sounds like, especially what we learned about Leo, was that Leo was picked by the previous headmaster and Oz to be the next headmaster. Like, they was a picked succession, whereas with what happened with Atlas could it have to do with the fact of everything that happened with Mantle.
Yeah.
Because Ozpin's original deal was with Mantle, but then everything happened with Atlas, and then a bunch of stuff could have happened, and suddenly James is in charge of the school, and the previous headmaster could do nothing about it.
Yeah.
Or died suddenly, or something, and like the person who was supposed to succeed that headmaster couldn't like get the political capital to take the seat, and James took it instead.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know any of this, and that's like where our perspective is flawed, because we don't have any of this information to work with. So. Yeah, I don't know. But all I know is I don't trust Ironwood to make the right decisions. And I'm worried about them telling him anything at all. Because he's just not going to take it well. Yeah, anyway, back to the scene we were talking about before we somehow got on that tangent. I like that Yang is calling Raven out here and being like, you're an idiot, you're not thinking this through, and also you think you're tough shit, but you're not really. You're just as scared as I am, and like, I like her line where she says, you might be powerful, but that doesn't make you strong. Like, strength is not the same thing as power, and like, Raven craps on about like, I'm a survivor, I've survived all of this crap. I'm like, yeah, but you're a piece of shit. Like, is it really worth being alive if you're like such a deplorable human being?
Yeah. Because there's a thing where it's like, oh, you're a survivor, but you make it so you only interact with him this tiny little circle.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's easy for you to survive in that tiny little circle, whereas, Yang's, like, out in the world, and she has to survive in a circle this big, and she's, even though she's scared to death, she's surviving in this.
Yeah, exactly. She's got more cojones than her mom ever will. And she proves it here by fucking running away. And she's like, she just nopes out of there the second that she realizes, crap, I haven't thought this through, actually. I don't want to get my ass chased by Salem for the rest of eternity, so bye, Yang, see you later. And, like, I was kind of surprised that she ran, but at the same time I was like, you are such a piece of shit. I'm not surprised you ran at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's good riddance. Oh my god. We haven't seen the last of Raven, but...
Oh, definitely not. We Raven has to come back in, just because, like, there's going to be, like, some big maiden showdown eventually. Like, because I still don't... Especially because Cinder did not gain Spring's powers, I don't think Cinder will gain Winter and Summer's power as well.
No.
So I have a feeling we're at some point going to get, like, we had the Battle of the Maidens, but at some point we're going to get the Battle of the Four Maidens.
Yeah. It's got to converge at some point, yeah. The vault itself, we know, because it's been stated since, that the vault isn't a place that's on Remnant. It's like an otherworldly sort of dimension. It doesn't have any physical being within the world that they're on. Once they step through the vault, it's like stepping into an alternate realm, essentially. So,
and it's so fitting that the lamp is in, like, the desert.
Yeah.
Because, like, we, learning about the genie of the lamp and everything, it's like, ooh, it's in the desert.
So many parallels we can draw in hindsight. Yeah. Then we get the scene of Leo's demise, which I still think that this is a fitting way for him to go, but it's so much less than what he deserved. I'm like, he deserved to be hogtied and castrated and paraded through the streets. Tied to the back of a fucking Nevermore. Like, that's what he deserved. But it's not what he got. But what he got was fitting for his character. Mm-hmm. He was the Cowardly Lion and he went out like a little bitch. So, the Seagrim, I eternally love the Seagrim. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
With the Salem echoey voice, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I just love the shot of him, like, rummaging through his desk, and then you just hear, like, because it's not footsteps, because it floats. You hear clicking. But you hear the click sound, and then he looks up, and it's just sitting in the doorway, and it's like,
it's so creepy. But it reminds me of a clicker from The Last of Us. That's kind of exactly what it sounds like, and it's just like clicks its way into the room, and you're like, oh, hi. And like the way Salem is so like cool, calm, and collected when she's like, Leo, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing, bitch? And he's like, I am totally not...
Cinder. Cinder's fault.
This is Cinder's fault. Like, he's immediately trying to deflect. And he mentions that the student with the silver eyes is there. And, like, knowing what we know about Silver Eyes now, and it's interesting to hear that kind of, like, mention of it.
Well, I feel like in that scene, he was literally throwing out every buzzword he could.
Every excuse,
Cinder did. Silver Eyes. Ozpin. The police. Like, he's just like... Everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he's literally just like, anything, everyone's fault. Like, things to trigger Salem, so she keeps me useful.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm useful, I swear. Like, please, don't kill me.
Exactly, yeah, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's just like throwing out every excuse he can possibly think of to be like, please don't kill me, this isn't my fault. And, like, I love the way that she's silent the whole time. He's like crapping on about all of this stuff, and like the more silent she is, the more nervous he gets. And he's like, there's like awkward pauses, and then he'll like come up with a different tactic. Like, instead of making excuses, he's like
bargaining,
and then he tries to attack the Seagrim, which is stupid. But and like she's just like bitch slaps him into the afterlife, and like it's really fitting. And the fact that he gets like dragged off of camera and then we just hear him die is really creepy. And
I loved it.
I loved it. And then it cuts to Salem and she's like, coward. And the entire fandom is like, yas, bitch. Listen, Salem's an evil bitch, but we love her.
We love her.
We love her.
Like it's so weird because like I like during Volume 5, like I loved to hate Cinder, and Salem I just was like, oh, Salem's cool. And now it's like reversed almost, where I'm like, I love to hate Salem, but like I'm Cinder, I'm just kind of like, ew.
The thing is, I'm on the fence whether or not I actually hate Salem after learning everything we learned. I feel like I feel sorry for her, but at the same time, she did bring a lot of it on herself, but at the same time, she was disenfranchised, but at the same time, she fell into the grim pool, and it's kind of in her nature, and she can't really help it.
Yeah.
So,
it's
and
almost
also,
like they
Austin
finally
did
wrote
lie
a good
to her for like years, and like kept this big secret from her. So of course she flipped out when she found out about it. So I'm like, at the same time, Ozpin and Salem are like equal parts, almost responsible for all of this. Almost equal parts. I feel like Salem's a little more responsible because she was the one who like instigated it all by playing chicken with the gods. And it's like, but it, like I can see where she was coming from, and I can forgive her because she seriously lacked any kind of etiquette and social skills whatsoever from being locked up her whole life. So like I can see where each party is coming from, and I can see why they're both to blame for everything that's happened. But Ozpin, I feel like his blame doesn't mostly come from those events that occurred in the past. His blame comes from lying to everybody around him about it and expecting them to throw themselves in the line of fire when he can't even do a simple thing like be honest. That's why Ozpin pisses me off. But like
that's why I keep waiting for Oz to come back, because I'm like, bitch, we're going to counseling.
Yeah.
Terracotta's going to sit us down and we're going to have a good therapy session.
We need to sit down and talk about this ish. Because this is just too messy and, like, he can't hide forever. He's got to come back. And I feel like they're going to put Oscar in harm's way, and that's going to be what's going to make him come back, because now Oscar's pissed off. But, yeah, so Leo's death, totally fitting. Loved it. Good scene. Probably best scene in the whole... the Raven Yang thing's probably
I was going to say, it was like, because that's what I was thinking, too, because, like, it's so well voice acted. Like, that scene is just, like, especially, like, Raven, especially in that scene, I just love how, you know, I love her, like, I don't love her lines, but I love the way she delivers her lines in that scene.
See,
so it's just, like, ugh.
I don't. Like, I think Anna did a phenomenal job as Raven, but I just... When I hear Raven in that scene, I hear a petulant child throwing a tantrum because they don't actually know whether they want the ice cream or not. Like,
but that's why it's so good, though.
Yeah, I know, but like,
that's Raven.
She just pisses me off in that scene. I'm like, you don't know what you want, and it's so obvious. Like, do you want to take the candy or not, bitch? Make up your mind. And the way that she's like, I've stared death in the face over and over, and every time I've survived because I'm strong and shit. And Yang's like, you aren't shit, bitch. I like Yang a lot more in that scene, because Yang actually, you know, stands up to her and is like, actually, you're not as top shit as you think you are. And let me tell you why.
Well, I just love that, like, even just the premise of the start of that scene is, like, is Raven being like, oh, and you just stood there and obeyed, didn't you? And Yang's like, no, I asked questions like you told me to. So, bitch.
So,
hi.
Tell me.
What's happening?
What's the deal? What's the tea?
And Raven's just like, shit.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, crap. Well, bitch just took that and turned it on me. She's your daughter, after all, Raven.
Exactly. We know where Yang gets her temper tantrums.
Yeah. So after Leo's death, we go back to the Haven Academy, and they're standing in lines talking to each other. And I'm like, there's way too little action happening in this entire... Like, this is supposed to be the big climactic confrontation of the entire volume, and there's nothing going on. And I'm like, when did they stop fighting? Why are they having a conversation right now? I don't understand what's happening in the scene. And then, like, Yang busts in with the relic, and it's like...
Yeah,
okay.
well, I just like that, like, the Emerald's like, you'll see, Cinder will come back, and she'll stop you. You'll see. And then Yang's like...
Such a drama queen. I love it. Yang's like, hi, bitches, what's up?
Yang shows up 10 minutes late with Starbucks. Like, what's happening?
Huh? What'd I miss? Yang looks at Blake. Ugh, bee-baiting. Goodbye. Hey, there's a question. Jay Spy wants to know, imagine if Oscar's having a wonderful time at the moment. A nice old lady takes him and gives him lots of good, tasty, rich food and a place to sleep. Yes, this Yako's a very nice old lady with no ulterior motives whatsoever.
No. I keep Baba Yaga away from my sweet boy.
I know, right? That's a terrifying thought. Yeah, something's gonna happen to Oscar. They're not just gonna find him. Like, that's not how this is gonna go down. Something's gonna happen. It's gonna put him in harm's way, and it's gonna force Ozpin to climb out of his pity hole, or wherever he is right now, and actually step up and do something. But yeah, this scene, so much bee-baiting going on, and then just, oh my god, they're not, and like, now in Volume 6, they're not even trying to be subtle about it. They're just like, oh, look at Yang grabbing Blake's hand for no reason, and it adds nothing to the scene, but we're putting it in there because bee-baiting, and like, it drives me nuts. But,
listen, it drives me nuts too.
Like, I know it drives you nuts, but it drives us nuts for different reasons. This is the thing.
Well, listen, like, cause it fuels me, it fuels my soul, but it also drives me nuts because I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Stop. Give it up. Either do it or don't, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
I don't care if they make Bumblebee canon, but at this point, because they have baited it so much, and because the Bumblebee fucking side of the shipping side of the fandom are crazy, and like, just like, at this point, yes, you know I'm talking about you. At this point, if they make it canon, it is going to feel like fan service, no matter which way they spin it.
But like, it was always like, either way, it was always going to feel like fan service. I think.
I know,
like,
but that's the thing.
I feel like there's no way for us to get around either side feeling like it would have been fan service.
I just don't get it personally, but I'm like.
Well, that's also
whatever.
part of why. I feel like that's the reason why this season there's been so much baiting, is because like a lot of people, like there was subtext before, and so many people are like, you're reading too much into things, and so now they're like, okay, we have to like explicitly show it. Like, we can't just get by on subtext alone. We have to explicitly show it to then see, and then gauge people's reactions. Not that they're going to take people's reactions into account at all, but
I hate the concept of subtext, because I feel like people confuse subtext with headcanon too much. And it's like, headcanon and subtext do not coexist. Your headcanon is your own. And I'm sorry, my cords are so tangled right now. I'm just trying to sort this out. Your headcanon is your own. And people so often confuse headcanon with actual canon and talk about their headcanon like it is actual canon, and state things like they're facts when in fact they're not. And just like, people love to talk about ships like they're actually canon. And I'm like, until these characters actually do or say something that says to us, we are now in a relationship, it's not canon. And stop thinking that it is. And like, the only ship in the entire show that's actually canon at this point is Renora. And even then, it's gone on the back burner. So like, we know it's there, but it kind of doesn't really exist right now. And there's just like such tiny little like subtle things that they're putting in there to be like, we haven't forgotten about this. This is actually still a thing. So we're like, okay, but don't talk about your goddamn ships like they're canon until they're actually represented in the show. Like, things like Yang grabbing Blake's hand and stuff like that. I hate subtext. I feel like people who read into subtext way too much, or like see subtext where there is none, ruin things like that. And it's like, I don't give a shit if they make Bumblebee canon or not. I really don't. But the fandom ruins the prospect of it to me, because they like just want it so badly that I'm like, if they do it, it will feel like fan service no matter how they pull it off. And like, they just have no hope of making this not feel like fan service.
But I know. But the thing is I know, I don't see the like handhold as subtext, because
it's
like
not,
that,
it's in your face.
Because that feels very blatant. Like, it's just like some of the other things, like early Arcos relationship developing, or early Renora developing. Like, I feel like those have to do more with like, those weren't as much subtext, whereas a lot of like the early Bumblebee stuff was more subtext. But I see we have a question, so I'll let you read that.
I can't. The whole question does not fit in the alert, so I'm just gonna pull it up. I literally can't read the entire question. Your question is too long, J-Spy. It's not all showing up in the thing. But like, I think the thing is, they're not doing this this baiting for the sake of like LGBT representation. That's not what it's about. Because they're not afraid to represent the LGBTQIA plus community in the show, obviously.
And I hate that argument when people talk about Bumblebee, is that it like, as if it's just like going to be forced LGBT representation. It's like, I don't, like, people don't want it because it's LGBT. They want it because it's a cute pairing, they think, or stuff like that. So, like, that's always an argument I hate seeing from the other side, is like, oh, it's so forced, blah, blah, blah. Like,
at this point, to me, though, it will feel forced, just because they have been putting so much of these little, like, things in. and like they're just not being subtle about it, and they're not trying to hide the fact that they're throwing it right in our face. And like that handhold in particular was one moment where I'm like, okay, Miles and Carrie, calm the fuck down. Like, well, I see what you're doing.
I feel like that's almost like I can almost understand, and granted, I don't know if this is the reason, but I feel like a lot of the reason they do stuff like that is because a lot of times in shows or in media in general, if you are having an LGBT couple, like it's only subtext, like that's all you ever get.
Yeah.
Like Legend of Korra, like their plan was always starting around season 2 was to have Korra and Asami get together, but they could only put in subtext because the showrunners would not let them put in anything like majorly like spelling it out that they like each other and stuff. Yeah. And that's why some people, when it came to the finale and they held hands and all this stuff, that people were like, some people were like, oh my god, it came out of nowhere. But then there were all these other people who were like, oh my god, they did do it, like they saw it coming a mile away. And I feel like that has a lot to do with just the history of LGBT representation in media, is that people had to get good at reading subtext to find the representation and to see these things that couldn't be explicitly stated. And that's why I think a lot of people early on in RWBY thought that was the case with Bumblebee, is because there was the like little hints of it. Whereas, and like not even just that, like also White Rose and stuff like that, like they see all these little subtexty things that they're like, maybe. And I feel like that's why the show is now, like, if they're moving in that direction, they're making it more explicit because they're like, you know, because they have the chance to, and because it's more equal, I guess. Yeah. And it's not just other things.
But that's the thing.
Like, hey.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, that, like, we...
Oh, J-Spy put his full question in the thing.
That's the thing, though. A company like Rooster Teeth and a show like RWBY is not afraid to represent the LGBTQIA community. Bumblebee is not about representation. That's not what... It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with these characters and how canonically they actually feel about each other versus how the fandom wants them to feel about each other. And it's like, until those two things align, then it's just not canon. And I'm like, at this point, an example I want to use is the show Yuri on Ice, because I haven't actually seen the entire show, but I've seen parts of it. I have, like, researched it on YouTube. I watched the first episode. I hated it. But then I went and watched...
First episode's really bad.
I went and watched scenes from later episodes on YouTube because I wanted to, like, educate myself about it a bit more. And I did hear about the whole LGBT representation in that show. Now, I want to use this as an example because I feel like if Bumblebee becomes canon, it's because it was always intended to be canon. And, like, from the very beginning, that is what Monty wanted. And that's the only way they will ever put it in the show, is if it was what Monty intended from the very beginning. Because it's a dangerous fire to play with. And I'm using Yuri on Ice as an example because I feel like that is a show... I know that Yuri and Victor, is it?
Yep.
It's his name, Victor. They do end up... I don't know if they end up in a relationship, but...
They're married at the end.
They're married at the end? Okay, I haven't seen the end.
Yeah.
Well, they're gay as fuck. So, like...
Yeah. The first episode ends with Victor literally standing up in a spa fully naked in front of Yuri.
I know, yeah. Like, and it's like super obvious right from the get-go that this is where this is going. But, of course, after that first episode, the shipping, like, fandom took it and ran with it. And it's like, by the time they actually got around to, like, approaching these two men being in a relationship, it couldn't help but feel like it was fan service, even though it was intended from the very beginning. And that is because fandoms fucking ruined this shit. With all of their shipping, like, and, like, it would be fine. I don't care who you ship whoever you want. Don't ship, like, Oscar with, like, adults, because that's weird. But, like, just don't do that, because that's pedophilia. Like, that's not okay. But
I mean, actually, though.
Ship any consenting adult with whatever other consenting adult you please. But, like, if you're ruining the prospect of that ship actually being canon because you are so crazy about it, what are you doing with your life? Like, oh my goodness, stop. Like, I ship, as far as, like, things that I don't like to ship people usually, but the best example I can think of is that I ship Simon and Marcus and DBH so hard, it's not even funny. But I am never going to go out there and be like, you know, this is the be-all, end-all. I'm never going to criticize people who don't ship it. I'm never going to criticize people who ship Marcus with North or Marcus with Connor. I'm like, whatever floats your boat. I personally am just disappointed that it's not even explored in the actual source material. But when really it was baited in the source material. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely baited, but they never took the full step towards it, and it's done away with in favor of the heterosexual relationship being thrown in our faces. That's what bothers me about that.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, is a lot of I don't want to say a lot of, but I know Bumblebee shippers who feel the exact same way about Bumblebee.
Yeah.
Is they feel like it's been baited and it like quit queer baiting us and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's stuff like that it is a really like incredibly fine line that I don't even know if you can walk that line, honestly. Like it's dangerous because, like, you, especially in the case of Ruby, you will piss off people either way you go.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and there's
People
no ifs, ands, or buts about
that. No matter
that.
which way. See, I'm the kind of person that I'm like, I am LGBT, so any kind of representation is great, but at the same time, Bumblebee has been ruined for me by the fandom, and I'm like, if they do it, it will feel like fan service, even if it was intended from the very beginning. And if it becomes canon, I really want Miles and Cory to come out and say, to say that this was the plan from the beginning. They're gonna have to do that because there's no other way that, like, they can convince me that it's not fan service. But that's just because fandom has so, like, really totally ruined the prospect of it for me.
Yeah, but like, I don't know, your example of Yuri on Ice, I think, is a really good example of, like, that. I mean, that was so blatant from the beginning. Like,
it was
clearly
from the get-go.
This was always the plan. Like, Victor liked Yuri and Yuri liked Victor, and it was apparent immediately.
Even though I think their relationship's a little weird because Victor's, like, quite a bit older than Yuri. Again, they're two consenting adults. It's fine. And they clearly have a lot of chemistry with each other, and they clearly do care about one another. And
they also do later on in the season deal with, like, because people did have issues of, like, the potential weird power imbalance, and they do deal with that later in the season. So, you know,
I feel like Yuri on Ice, even though I did not like what I saw of it in the first episode, I feel like it's a very brave show for doing that, especially being an anime.
Well, I mean, not just that, but also, like, just being about figure skating. Like, you wouldn't think it, but figure skating is, like, a horribly homophobic sport.
It's super. It's funny because it's like ballet. It's very similar to ballet. It is a very prim and proper sport. It is very. It's a very exclusive kind of, like, I don't want to say snobby, but snobby kind of thing. And it is extremely homophobic. And it's a very difficult sport for people of LGBTQIA+ to be involved in because it is just so frowned upon. And it's like, and you wouldn't expect that, but it is. That's the way that it is. And Yuri on Ice, I think, even though I don't like it, I think it's an incredibly brave show. And for including this relationship that doesn't, at the end of the day, even feel like it's for the sake of representation or fan service. It's just two people who love each other.
It was just a story that they wanted to tell. Exactly.
And that is the way that it should be handled in any kind of media. But again, I didn't get into the fandom side of Yuri on Ice, so I like didn't have
But,
that experience of it being ruined for me before it actually became canon. So, yeah, and also like I don't watch the show, so
exactly.
I'm not terribly invested in it. I only watched all the important bits because I'm like, leave all this other fluff out. I don't need it. Anime's full of fluff. It's just annoying.
I mean, it is. Yuri on Ice tried to be good about that. Tried. The first like 3 episodes are super slow, and then it gets good.
I might actually have to try and watch like the second episode because I hated the first one. I was like, this is fucking awful. I don't understand why everyone loves this so much.
Well, also the other thing is you just get to see the art style improve over the one season as well. Like it's an interesting watch. I get that it's not for everyone though, but it's certainly an interesting show to watch.
Yeah.
Did you read J Spy's comment? Because I think that's...
I've been trying to read it while I've been talking, and I've reread the same sentence like 4 times, and I can't. It's too much text. It's too early.
I just think that J Spy's comment was very good because he basically just talks about how like companies will like include an LGBT character, but then like in such a way that they can maintain plausible deniability or hide it away in a way so that way like they don't piss off the like conservative countries or the fascist countries that are like ew gays. And like this was an issue that Steven Universe dealt with where they had 2 characters, Ruby and Sapphire, who in the show all the gems are female presenting, and
bad choice of words, but okay.
What do you mean? Why is that bad choice of words?
Carry on, ignore me. Carry on.
But these 2 characters, Ruby and Sapphire, are in a relationship, but one wears a dress and one's a little more masculine. And so other countries, when they like imported the show there, they like changed it so that way people referred to Ruby as a he, and so Ruby was a he and Sapphire was the she. So in a recent episode where those 2 characters got married, I don't know, spoilers maybe, I guess. And when they got married, they put Ruby in the dress and they put Sapphire in a suit as just a little way to say fuck you to those countries. Like, explain away Ruby being a dude in a wedding dress now.
Yeah, fuck those countries. Yeah, exactly. And like, yeah, it's just at this point, it's like I lost my train of thought completely just then. Wow, that was like, I felt that train of thought just go out of my head. I was like, oh god, what was I about to talk about? I have no idea. But yeah, it's like, it's about to be 2019. When are we going to get over this in media? And it's like, I love shows like Yuri on Ice and like Ruby being so brave to be so open about their LGBT representation and the way they represent it as being such a normal thing, because it is a normal thing and it should be presented and it should be perceived as a normal thing. And
exactly. That's why I hated the live action Beauty and the Beast for this, because they flaunted their gay characters and all this stuff, and then like in the actual thing, it's like all you get is subtext and a scene where 2 dudes dance, and like they flaunted like, look at us in our representation, but it wasn't.
It wasn't there. Yeah,
it was a dude in a dress and all this other stuff, and like,
and the character of LeFou himself was so obviously stereotypically gay, it wasn't funny. And I was like, this is not what representation is, and it's not what it should be. This is you giving us a stereotypically, look at me, I'm gay character that has unrequited feelings for a super duper straight guy. And it's like, no.
Well, both of the LGBT characters in that were horribly like...
I don't even remember who the other one was, to be honest.
The other one was the guy that when the wardrobe attacked him, she put him in a dress and put up makeup on him, and he was all like...
Yeah.
And then then him and LeFou dance, and it's like,
that
ew.
Was so dumb. It was so dumb, and I hated it, and I was like, I was really hoping that it was going to be progressive, and it was the opposite of progressive, and I was like, oh, why Disney? Why? If
and
this
the thing
is how you're going to do this, don't do it.
And the thing is like, they did it in a way where they were hoping to appease both sides. Like they were like, look at us, we're being so good, look at our LGBT representation, but it's so minuscule that you might not even notice it.
And it's
to like
also full
appease
of
the people. Yeah, and to appease the people who aren't okay with that. But all they ended up doing was pissing off the people who were yay for it, and then the people who weren't for it didn't watch the movie because they were like, ew, gays?
Exactly.
And, like, so it's like they just ended up, like, taking what they thought was a win-win and just turned it into a lose-lose.
Exactly. Exactly. And they just went completely the wrong way about it altogether. And, like, if that's the way you're going to do it, then just leave it out. Don't even do it, because it's more harmful than it is helpful. And like, they just capitalized on the fact that they had, oh, look at our LGBT character, and it's like, a bitch, he is so gay, it's not funny, but you've stuck him in this situation where he doesn't appear like everybody else, and he's so obviously the token gay one, and I'm like, that is not, no, don't do that.
And the other thing that was about that even that made I saw like 2 people talk about this online that I was like, okay, I didn't think of it that way, but I can see why you would, is that like an openly gay man was playing Gaston, so people were hoping that, like, when the announcement that it was LeFou who was, you know, gay, that maybe they would do something there, but no.
No.
Just they stuck to the source material and they made it super
awkward. It was just awkward.
Awkward, and just, I can't, the word is on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't get it.
Cringe.
Nope, I've lost it.
Okay, well, anyway, we're on a tangent again. Let's get back on track.
I know,
here.
we seriously need to get off Bumblebee.
I know. So yeah, LGBT baiting, don't do that.
But that's the thing, though. I feel like they're doing better. Okay, final thoughts.
Definitely.
Move on.
Yeah. Moving on. The Salem illusion was super scary.
So scared.
I hated, like Ruby, like, shaking after that happened. I was like, oh, my poor baby. Oh my god, she's so scared. And
Yeah, I love the entire lead up to the scene, like, even with like Emerald and Mercury, I guess, in this scene, where, like, Mercury's, like, trying to comfort Emerald, and, like, you can clearly, like, he also immediately picks up on the fact that she's panicking.
Yeah.
And he's like, Emerald. And, like, you can, and, like, she's having such a realistic panic attack that I'm just like, yes. And then, even though she's exhausted, probably, like, aura is so dwindled, she manages to do this, like, insane move to cause everybody to see this hallucination, while Hazel picks her up and runs.
Yeah, well, we know that aura is a very emotional thing, and a semblance is an emotional thing, and emotions can make it go, like, a bit haywire. Yeah, it's not surprising that this happened, because she basically just found out that Cinder was dead. And we know Emerald idolizes Cinder more than anything, so...
idolizes, yes.
Yes. Anyway, that's another can of worms we are not going to open, because we're not getting back on the topic. Moving on.
True.
Right.
We need to finish this up.
And so they just bugger off. Mise-en-scene's a mess. And then Adam sees, like, Hazel and Mercury and Emerald running from the scene. And I'm like, is this shot significant? Because... Exactly. Then we get the Adam character short, and they're not there. It's just Adam on his own. Jesus Christ, Jace. And... Hang on, let me just read this real quick. How many people do you think Ruby will learn to bring with her in the flying petal tornado? What? Oh, you wrote RWBY, but you're talking about Ruby Rose. Oh. Derp. That confused the shit out of me. I'm sure she can do it with anyone.
Well, no, but I think he's saying how many at once, and I think probably by the end of the show that they'll have a Ruby girl speed spiral.
Team Ruby spiral, yes. Yeah, I don't know. Again, semblances are supposedly limitless. Like, there's no limit to what they can learn to do with them and how far they can push them. It's just a matter of practice. As
we've seen with Ruby, I think it just comes down to, like, weight. Because, like, she couldn't lift Penny. Granted,
Penny was too heavy.
Granted, or she wasn't as trained then yet. And maybe that gets easier. That, like, you know, she reaches such a speed that basically everyone becomes floaty and stuff. But, like, she's able.
Penny was heavier than the average person, so
exactly.
Yeah.
She was a little bit too metal.
Oh my god, I hate you so much right now.
That was actually an accident. I
I know it was. That's why I hate it. Yeah, so we get the Adam character short, and like Adam's by himself, and then in volume 6,
and he's limping
in volume 6
for no reason.
like, yeah, and they've split up completely. Like Adam's gone back to the White Fang, and Hazel went back to Salem. So I'm like, why is this shot here? Why does it exist? And
Yeah.
like, I don't.
But I think that the only thing I can see it for, in like put all of this stuff into a context, is it's all Adam piecing together how he was just a pawn to Salem. Mm-hmm. Like he talks in this episode about having powerful friends, and he talks about like all this other stuff, and then seeing Hazel and Mercury and Emerald run off, and not even care to think of him or anything. And, like, all this other stuff makes him realize that he was just a pawn in this game. Mm. And also, that, I feel he'll need to take things into his own hand.
Yeah. I feel like they showed it to show, like, that they're running away, but I don't get the showing of the shot of Adam actually, like, watching
that
them.
Too. Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on the Necromancy Weiss alternate universe? What?
Is that the dishwasher thing?
No. I don't know what this is. I haven't heard of it. Since Weiss can summon stuff, she kills that she... it disappeared before I could read it, but...
that might include people. Mercy kills are still kills. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever get to that.
I don't think she has the ability to summon people. I think it's just Grim.
Yeah. Especially, I also just don't think that that they will ever, like, show us the Ruby girls killing people.
No, God, no.
Or... unless it's, like, Cinder. And even then, like, I don't...
Cinder's not going to die by any of their hands. She's going to die by consequence. That's true. That's how she's going to go out. Then no one's going to actually physically stab her. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know. Plus, also, it's just, like... I feel like, even Winter would have killed people. Maybe. Winter did...
It could be argued that they killed people at the Fall of Beacon, but we didn't actually see anybody die there. Like, we saw them attacking them, but people have aura, so but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Plus also, like, I mean, I guess technically it could be a thing that she could do, because once again, it's just like the physical representation of a thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, she's able to summon the armor. And, like, granted, all the armor was, like, Grim possessed.
Yeah.
Was a Geist in there, and, like, all this other stuff. So, like, I could see them potentially going that way. But, like, that just seems like that would be cruel. Mm. And also, like, it'd almost be, like, too similar to, like, Velvet's. Where, like, she just suddenly has, like, Ruby standing there with her scythe, like, I'm here to kill things.
Oh, well, she'd have to kill Ruby in order for that to happen.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry, let's dismiss that thought immediately. But yeah, and like the thing is with the armor, the reason why that's her summon is because could you imagine how useless it would be if she could just summon a Geist that can't possess anything? How useless would that be? But yeah, the armor's obviously way cooler and more useful. So, but yeah, I haven't heard about this AU at all. I don't know anything about that. So. It was nice watching this chapter again to see Blake's family, because they disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Completely fell off the face of the earth. And Ilya as well.
It was just nice seeing Sun again.
It was nice seeing Sun. It was nice seeing Ilya again. Even though her, like, one line in this whole chapter makes no sense whatsoever. Well, the first part of it anyway. He was the only one to escape tonight. Bitch, no, he wasn't. Literally, 3 other people just escaped out the door right now.
Yeah, you literally just missed 5 seconds ago. 3 people running out of here.
But yeah, Blake's little interaction with the family here. I'm annoyed that we didn't get to see Blake's family interacting with the rest of Team Ruby. We didn't get to see Ilya interacting with them. I get why they didn't do it, but at the same time, I'm annoyed about it. And like, it was something I really wanted to see, how these characters would interact with each other. But yeah, we just didn't get that. So. I I love that Sun used his tail to whip Blake around. That was super cute.
That was cute.
So cute. But the shot before that, he like waves at Team Ruby and nobody waves back. Like,
I know, so awkward.
He's literally waving at them and they've all got their backs turned and they're like trying to like deal with the fact that they've actually managed to not die. And he's like, "Oh hey guys," and no one's waving. It's so funny. But yeah, it was super cute. And then Yang comes down and she explains to Crow what happened in the vault. And people have been coming back at me about Yang getting pissed off at Ozpin for lying and being like, well, she didn't tell them that Raven was the Spring Maiden. She didn't tell them on camera. We didn't see it. Doesn't mean she didn't tell them. We don't know if she told them or not. She could have told them later. Yeah. And like when I was rewatching this, I was like, it would be it's not the appropriate time for her to disclose that information, because it's a conversation that would take a long time to have. So like the second she would be like, oh, and by the way, Raven was the Spring Maiden, Crow would be like, what? Like, and he'd want to, she'd have to explain what happened in the vault. So I'm certain that she actually did explain what happened in the vault at a later point. She had 2 weeks after the end of Haven. So I feel like she wouldn't keep that to herself, because she is so adamant about Ozpin telling them the truth and not lying about shit. I'm like, why would she keep that to herself?
Well, because I don't know, because we saw that shot in like chapter 2 that like of them talking about the relic, and Crow said without the Spring Maiden. I feel like if he'd known, he would have said without Raven. And Yang also looked really like sad there. I think it's a semantic thing, but at the same time, I'm like, she could have kept it to herself because maybe she just didn't think it was relevant anymore, seeing as Raven wasn't there. And I also think maybe she's just straight up trying to protect Raven, because like Raven didn't want to get involved in this. She's a dumbass. Like, she is. It is especially dumb knowing that Cinder is alive. It's like, well, Cinder knows. Like, Cinder knows, and soon Salem will know. So why not let Ozpin know? Yeah, I feel like that would have been something they would have shown us, because of the way that, like, when she delivered that line to Crow, and then when the thing happened in chapter 2, both instances, I'm like, she's keeping it from them. I got that vibe she was purposefully keeping it from them. Yeah, and I'm like, that is really hypocritical of her, but at the same time, it's not really that relevant of information anymore, because the vault has been opened and the relic removed. So the Spring Maiden is essentially useless now. And because it's Raven and she's gone, I can see why she would see no point in disclosing that information. And again, you could be right, she could be trying to protect Raven, which is just stupid. And I'm like, Yang, why? She literally owes that woman nothing. So, yeah. But I also feel like if she told Crow that Raven was the Spring Maiden, A, he would probably not be that surprised, and B, he wouldn't, like, try to go, like, hunting for her or anything. You could have just asked me how long we've been live for. Well, but you were talking. I can do it like that. Yeah, so much for not going more than an hour. We keep going on tangents all the time. But yeah. Us in a nutshell. I know. Ruby, like, collapses here, and I'm like, bitch, you hardly did anything. Why are you so tired? You didn't get stabbed. You didn't get knocked. Well, she got knocked out once. You didn't get stabbed. You didn't get maimed. You barely did anything this entire time. I don't know why you're so fucking tired. But I love that Weiss is, like, grabbing her. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, honey, you're the one who got stabbed. Would you worry about yourself, please? Like, there is your own blood is still on your dress. I know! Are you okay? Are you okay, Weiss? Jesus! Like, oh my god. The reunion between Team Ruby, I mean, we've been waiting for it all volume. It wasn't what I was expecting. It wasn't what I was expecting either. Or at least it wasn't what I wanted, I guess. No, I don't know if I should say expecting, but what I wanted. There was just so much tension in it, which I was expecting. But I wasn't expecting Yang to just be like, yeah, okay.
cool. We're back together now. Let's all hug and make up and be friends again. I like that they're now addressing it in Volume 6 and being like, everything's actually not cool between us. But for now, there are more important things to worry about, and we'll get to this later. But in the moment, I was like, really? Okay. Like, yeah. I mean, it did make me cry, because... Like,
exactly. Because they're back together. Our girls are hugging.
Yeah, exactly. Our girls are back together, and, like, how can I not get emotional at that? But at the same time, it's like, it just wasn't what I wanted. And a thing that made me really sad during that reunion was that they cut to a shot of what's left of Team Juniper, and all I could think about was how, like, they will never, ever be together again, because Pyrrha's dead. And that's so depressing. I'm like, how dare you ruin this beautiful reunion moment by reminding us that, oh yeah, the fourth member of Team Juniper's gone forever. And they can never have this moment with each other, because she's not coming back. So, but yeah, then we find out that Oz wants everybody to take the relic to Atlas, and the episode just kind of ends. And it's like, okay, well...
We have to get the relic to Atlas. It's like...
Right, dead, deceased. Yeah, it was a weird ending to the volume, just in general. And then the post-credit scene of, like, Raven porting to Tai Yang. I hate so much.
I hate it.
It didn't need to be there. We could have figured that out for ourselves. Because where the fuck else would she have been going?
Or they could have just spelled it out for us, like, later. Because, like, even, like, by explicitly showing it, they, like, almost limit themselves with Raven in the future, and they can't, like, introduce, like, she had a friend in Vacuo that she had an ex-boyfriend in Vacuo somewhere, or an ex-girlfriend in Vacuo somewhere, or something.
The thing is, though, we know that, like, she was in a team with Tai Yang at Beacon, so, like, they would have come out of Beacon, like, being in a relationship, probably most likely. Souls are a proven thing, why not the afterlife? Well, I don't understand your question. Were we debating the afterlife ever? I don't think we were.
Plus, I don't know, especially with how much we've learned about just the mythology of this world, I don't know, I don't like, when Ozma was brought back by the God of Light, he kind of seemed like he had just appeared out of nothingness. Sort of. Like, he didn't seem like he was enjoying some, like, afterlife existence. That he just kind of, like, appeared in this alternate dimension with the God of Light, and he was like, what's going on, huh?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't think that's something Ruby will ever address.
I don't think so either. But yeah, this post-credits scene, everybody throughout Volume 6 has been like, when are we getting to see the Tai Yang Raven scene? And I'm like, it's not happening. Why do you think that it is? Why do you think this is going to be a thing just because of this post-credits scene? The only reason she ported to Tai was because he was the only way she could get out of there. Vanal was dead, Crow was there, Yang was there. Her only other portal source is Tai Yang, and he's well away from everything that's going on. And the reason he looks up is because he knows it's her. And he's just like, what are you up to? Like, and that's like kind of, it's written all over his face. He's like, what are you up to? Like, why are you porting?
Just like the same way that when, like, when Raven was sending Freezerburn back to Crow, like, Crow immediately was like, Raven?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, like, they know the feeling, and they know the sound, and they know that they're familiar with the portalness. So, you know. And then also just, like, he probably heard a weird sound and then heard a Raven, and he was like, bitch, you're here?
But the fact that she doesn't, like, come to him to talk to him, he's like, what the fuck are you up to? Like,
exactly.
And it's, like, written all over his face. But I don't know why people thought we were going to get a scene of them talking. A, what the fuck would they say to each other? And B, the only reason she went there is because it was her only scapegoat. And there's no other reason. So I don't know why people are so adamant that this is going to be a thing.
Just take
Raven,
the
someone
volume.
thought it has a backbone later, yeah. yeah, so just.
I mean, just like take the Volume 2 post-credit sequence as an example. Like, they just completely retconned the shit out of that.
Yeah, they did. I feel like Monty wanted to go somewhere with that, but obviously didn't get the chance. So that just kind of just got disregarded almost altogether. I still am not sure if that was even real or if it was a dream. They did kind of touch on it in Volume 3 when Yang says you talked to her, that was real. And that I don't know if she was referring to that end post-credit scene or what, but
I'm pretty sure Kruby has been talking about when she, like, they were like, that was in reference to when she woke up after the Neo thing, not in relation to that. Because I think what she was thinking was that, like, she'd just woken up and she thought she saw something there and there was nothing there. And she was like, wait, that was real? I don't know.
The Volume 2 post-credit scene makes no sense to me now.
Yeah, you just kind of have to forget about it.
At the time, it was really intriguing, but then they did nothing with it.
I feel like it was just there to really spell out that, like, this person that saved Yang was her mom because they look exactly the same.
Yeah. They look identical, except Raven's got black hair. That was, and
exactly.
Like, it was Yang's model with a slightly different face and black hair. That's all it was. But obviously now she does look very different to how she did then. But, yeah. Spelling it out for us. Yeah. So anyway, we need to wrap this shit up because we've been going for more than 2 hours. Somehow. Tangents. So...
What?
I thought J-Spy asked that, and then I read your name, and I was like, did J-Spy... Nope, that was Cory. I hate you so much.
But why am I so darn sexy?
Oh my god, I'm not even gonna address that. And now J-Spy's actually asked a question. There were totally people who thought Raven was instead Yang's twin sister, Yin. Are you fucking kidding me? People are fucking stupid. I'm sorry, but they are.
So,
people are... that is so dumb.
I can see why, because they want the yin-yang association, but...
so dumb. No, why did people think this?
It was very clearly a mom, because, like...
Oh my god, why do people not pay attention?
Like, especially, like, twin sister? Like, this person was clearly way more experienced. And also, why wouldn't Yang have known? That's...
Exactly!
I can see...
there are so many holes in that.
People were like, it's the same model. They're the same age. Like...
It's the same model because they didn't have a Raven one yet!
Exactly. Like, because I do remember seeing comments about how people thinking that, you know, she was so young, maybe it's a sister, but, like...
And, like, there was
I thought that
talk earlier in the volume about Yang's mother, too, so they spelled it out for us. How the fuck did anybody think it was her sister? I have no idea. Oh my gosh. Anyway, we need to wrap this up. That just blew my mind. I'm like, y'all need to pay attention. Anywho, the Chapter 9 is coming out tomorrow, so next week we will be having some guests on for Chapter 9. Imagine if someone called Yin actually shows up later and meets Yang. I don't know. I'm not gonna even address that. That's just so... Ugh. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sorry about the weird, like, changing of the schedules with, like, them removing a chapter and bringing the break week forward. Yeah, we are going to have guests on next week for Chapter 9, so everything will resume as per normal. And, yeah, if you're watching this, there are no reactions this week.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, there are no Ruby reactions this week because there was no episode last week. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, there's no reactions. But there will be next week. So, and yeah. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye!
Bye!